listening to ESPN New York. You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
You know what it is when I finally make it home. I just hope that you miss me a little when I'm gone.
Yeah, just miss me a little when I'm
miss
gone.
Miss me a little when I'm gone.
Just a little bit would be nice. Just a little bit. That's all I ask.
One of my favorite jams.
Yeah? Drake?
Can't repeat the lyrics, though.
Well, Drake makes sexy music, you know?
Drake's a bad boy, man.
Yeah.
And incredibly impressive in person. Incredibly impressive in person.
Yeah, you enjoyed him on First Take, huh?
Oh, man, just a together brother in a lot of different ways. Young, understands what he doesn't know, you know, it does his thing but isn't extreme. Understands a lot of things that a lot of guys his age don't get. He's got an incredible, incredible future ahead of him, man, and it was really, really good to meet him. It really was.
Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Ruocco Show, presented by the Melrose MVP Scholarship Program. Know a deserving high school senior athlete. Melrose Credit Union is awarding $10,000 in college scholarships this year. Nominate your MVP today at ESPNNewYork.com/MVP. All right, Stephen, if we were going to power rank the biggest disappointments thus far in our New York basketball season, you and I both agreed that Darren would be number one thus far. Number two, I think I'd probably say J.R. Smith.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
It would be J.R.
Because if you think about it, last year, J.R. had a tremendous year. The Knicks need him, especially.
He's the reigning sixth man of the year.
Yeah, and they're going to have to outscore people with Tyson Chandler out. And right now, J.R. obviously, he waited to have that surgery. Maybe that's part of the reason for his rust.
He waited to have the surgery, got suspended.
Right. Suspended for 5
then
games.
Comes back, and then you're shooting 22%, and then in the midst of all of that, you get in trouble and get fined $25,000 because you're on Twitter arguing and getting ready to fight with folks.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
It's definitely J.R. J.R.'s an easy number two for me.
And I would have to say at number 3, I'd put Kevin Garnett. Because, now yesterday he hit his first 6 shots, but then he missed 11 of his next 13.
That's right.
It's his only game in double figures. And listen, here's the other thing. I'm sorry. When Darren Williams and Brook Lopez aren't playing, as they weren't last night, who are your 2 best players, you have to, A, step up on the floor. But then if you're Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, you have to answer questions afterwards. You can't leave that responsibility to Sean Livingston and Mason Plumlee. That was embarrassing last night that those 2 championship veterans, when they know that Brook Lopez and Darren Williams aren't there to speak about what took place because they didn't play in the game, those 2 skirt their responsibility and leave it on the shoulders of Sean Livingston and Mason Plumlee? Really?
Well, you know what really bothers me about it? I don't know KG that well. We have mutual friends, but I don't know him that well. KG and I used to talk in the past. Haven't talked a lot in many, many years. He's usually a consummate professional, Ryan. Works his tail off, never shortchanges anybody. He's a warrior. He goes out there, never cheats the game or whatever. He just seems at times unnecessarily abrasive. But the real thing that I can't stand is Paul Pierce. And the reason why is because KG just has those moods sometimes because he's intense. Paul Pierce was never like that. He just became like that once he got around KG. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not like he's his own man, even though he is, because I certainly wouldn't disrespect him like that. I'm just saying that I'm telling you right now, that's why Paul Pierce and I really don't communicate, because the person that he was before KG came to Boston is not that person. KG, good, bad, or whatever, has always been KG. He has never changed. He has always been that way. That is not Paul Pierce. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Paul Pierce skipped out last night because KG did.
Right.
And that's what bothers me about him. Now, and the other person I will put on a list, got to put Raymond Felton.
Yep, I agree.
Because you're a point guard, you're 11 points, shooting 37%. I need you got outplayed by Jeremy Lin at the Garden again.
And you're getting torched by every point guard.
Right. And last but not least, I have to put Carmelo Anthony there.
I agree.
You are the star. You are in the midst of an $85 million deal. You are the one that's en route to getting ready to sign for another $129 million or 98, depending on who you go to next. You get paid, but you got to show up. Now, he's averaging 25 a game, but he's only shooting 42% from the field. He's carrying the load. That's why I don't have him at the top of the list with Darren, because he's carrying a load, and he didn't expect Chandler to be gone. Amari is God bless him, man. He's such a good guy. It's just his knees. He's just done. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. It's just sad. It's got to the point where it's sad. I'm not being critical of Amari by any stretch. He's just not healthy. Did you ever think that the day will come where you'd see the numbers 3.2 points and 1.8 rebounds a game associated with Amari Stoudemire?
That's actually higher than I thought they were.
Yeah. On 38% shooting, averaging just 10 minutes a game.
It is sad.
It's just sad. But we know that's due to injury. But with Melo's got to pick up a lot of the slack. So I don't blame him. It's just that you can't be the star getting paid all this money and you can't rescue the team from mediocrity. You may not be able to elevate them to championship contention, but you can't regress that significantly.
Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Ruocco with you on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. All right, Knicks Nets therapy, 3-7, 3-6. We just outlined some of the issues and the culprits thus far this year. Your turn too as well. Rob in Rockland. Rob, you're on the Lexus of Route 10 hotline with Stephen A. and Ruocco.
How you guys doing? I agree with you mostly. I guess I just have to flip-flop KG and what's his name, because KG, JR, we know what he is. He's inconsistent all the time. KG, that jump shot, his defense, that's every night. So I'd have to put him 2 and then JR right after. But listen, Darren Williams, and I hear you, Steven, talking about him. I didn't get to see him play in Utah, but he just doesn't look like he's the guy here in New York or Brooklyn. I'm asking you because, you're the man. You tell me. He just doesn't look like he's ready to.
You talk about Darren?
Yeah, Darren Williams.
Let me tell you something about Darren Williams. I think when Darren Williams is on his A game, he's one of the top 5 point guards in this game. The problem is that's only half the time. The other half of the time, I don't know where he is. And more importantly, we can't figure out why some of the time. And it's kind of shocking because, see, I have this philosophy, Ryan.
Right.
When you're $98 million, obviously you can play. But it's also because it's supposed to be because either your box office, a la an Allen Iverson or somebody like that.
Right, which Darren's not.
Right? Or you're a champion, like Tim Duncan. There's nothing box office about Tim Duncan, but he's a champion.
Right.
And he's going to deliver the goods in most instances. Those are the reasons you're paid those exorbitant dollars. Not just because you can play. Plenty of dudes can play, don't deserve half what Darren Williams is getting. That's where your problem lies.
Yeah, here's the thing with Darren. I mean, if you think about his Nets career, it has been totally injury riddled. The only half of the season where he looked like that guy in Utah was the second half of last year. That's it. And then I saw him a couple times in the offseason. He was in excellent shape, looked like the same guy he was the second half of last year, and then he hurt his ankle in September. He had to go a month without doing anything or whatever, and he got on the floor at the start of the regular season, and he looked like the guy from the first half of last year, not the second. And then he hurt his ankle again. Listen, he hasn't been able to stay on the floor for them. They need him.
I believe in Darren Williams' skills. All I'm saying is that you've got to showcase them on a night in, night out basis. And the thing that I'm growing increasingly disappointed in is that it doesn't seem to be a priority for him to do that. I mean, when you just look at certain dudes and they just want it so bad. Like KG and those boys, they wanted it bad. Let me tell you something right now. Paul Pierce, I believe he's the truth. No matter what I think of him. Personally, I'm telling you, this dude is a champion. He's got a champion's heart. And I respect it. KG, champion's heart. I respect it. Don't like stuff like last night now. But, tell them they're in position to be the contenders that they're supposed to be. And my Lord, they're going to show up for you, Ryan. The problem is that it wouldn't surprise me at all if KG and Paul Pierce are regretting they're here. You have to remember, let me give you the inside information. Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce never wanted to come to Brooklyn. Last year, before all the coaching changes took place, with PJ and A.V. Johnson and all of that other stuff, the Nets were pursuing them. They didn't want to come here. Their plan was simple. To go to L.A., you remember when I was getting killed, excoriated through the media waves because I said Doc Rivers was going to the Clippers?
Yeah.
All right? And not only did I say Doc Rivers was going to the Clippers, I said KG and Paul Pierce were planning on going with him. And it wasn't until Commissioner Stern came on the show with you and I, Ryan, that we knew it was a no-go because Commissioner Stern made it clear that that wasn't going to be allowed.
Right.
So it wasn't that they weren't going to do it. It's that they didn't know that the commissioner was going to step in and disallow it because you can't be trading players to get the coach you want. He wasn't having that, which is what Danny Ainge was trying to do. He was trying to use the Clippers' coveting of Doc Rivers to get rid of KG and Paul Pierce's contracts. And Commissioner Stern wasn't going to let that happen. So you ain't doing that. And that's what happened. That's how it ended up working out. So I'm saying to you, KG and Paul Pierce, because Paul Pierce is from L.A., he was planning on going back to L.A. with Doc Rivers and KG. And once that didn't pan out, well, KG was going to retire, which Paul Pierce confirmed for us just a few weeks ago, remember?
Yeah.
But Paul Pierce didn't want to. They still have $15 million to collect this year and a new contract to try and get thereafter because he ain't quite ready to retire yet. So they settled for Brooklyn. They didn't really want to be here. But you can still have a ball and do what you do. Because once KG commits, he's all in. And Paul Pierce is a professional. Right? With all respect to him.
Yes.
He is a professional. So he's going to, that once they're here, they're in.
Yeah, and then by all accounts, they've really enjoyed.
Right. And I'm listen, I don't talk to them like that.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is that by all accounts, they're enjoying it, and I believe them. And they deserve our respect and our support because of what they do, what they've done, and they're not trying to cheat the game in any way. The problem is when you get here, and then you playing with cats who fall a bit short of your expectations. Now it becomes harder. Because when where you're at is the consolation prize, Ryan, and it's not really the place where you want it to be, but then you decide to come anyway and you're convinced to believe in these dudes, when all of that goes on, Ryan, and then you got guys like the Darren Williams of the world and others that ain't stepping up. Now it becomes a bigger problem because now at the tender age of 37, if you're Kevin Garnett, or the tender age of 35, if you're Paul Pierce, you've signed on for a bit more than you realized. And now it becomes far more challenging than you anticipated. And now life is a hell of a lot more difficult than you ever expected. That's what's going on in Brooklyn, no matter what they tell you.
Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Ruocco with you on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. 1-800-919-3776 is the telephone number on the Lexus of Route 10 hotline. A little venting, a little therapy after what has been a disastrous start for the Knicks and Nets on ESPN New York.
You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. Stephen, before we turn to the Knicks and their issues, one last thing on Brooklyn's issues. One guy who shouldn't get away from getting heat as well.
Yep.
Joe Johnson. I mean, The other night, I'm glad he hit that shot in Phoenix because he gave me my first ever NBA buzzer beater I got to call, and I very much appreciated that. But the next night against the Clippers, they don't have 4 of their 5 starters, and he gives them nothing that night. I mean, he shoots 5 of 17. That's a game where he has to step up. Last night, they don't have Brook Lopez, they don't have Darren Williams or Kirilenko. He shoots 4 of 12. It's not good enough. He needs to be better than that.
I agree with that, but the thing about it is that where Joe Johnson is almost forgivable, his efforts are almost forgivable, is that unfortunately you know what you're getting with him. He always operates in cruise control. The bigger the moment, the bigger he plays. Until then, he seems to be in cruise control. You knew that when you acquired him. You knew that while pairing him with Darren Williams. Darren Williams is the key here. Darren Williams is the reason that Jason Kidd is the coach. You got to remember, they wanted to make a splash. The Nets wanted a Doc Rivers. They wanted a Phil Jackson. Both told them no. So you had a situation, or in the Boston Celtics case, they made it clear the answer was going to be no because they weren't going to give Doc Rivers permission to talk to him. So that's what you're stuck with. So you go to Jason Kidd because you want to make a splash. And at the same time, you want to maximize the potential Darren Williams had because you already agreed to give him $98 million. He's at the core of all of this. You don't add the contracts of KG and Paul Pierce if Darren Williams is not in this roster. We're not bringing up Brook Lopez because Brook Lopez is doing his job.
Yes, he is.
He's 7 feet, he's raw, and is still good for 20 and 7 a night for you. I got no problems with Brook Lopez.
On like 60% shooting, too.
Yeah, I got no problem with Brook Lopez.
Right.
He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Need help?
Yes, he does. Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Ruocco with you on ESPN New York. Coach Kev in Jersey. All right, Coach Kev, I know you need some Knicks therapy. What's bothering you about your team's performance?
It's really bad, fellas. It really is. It's really tough to watch games, and normally I get excited, but I mean, I can't even bear to put on the TV tonight and watch them in Detroit. But really quick, I think we were a little bit spoiled last year to begin the season and to end the season, just the way they shot the ball from three specifically. Stephen A. brought up the numbers before, what Felton's shooting, what Shumpert's shooting, and what JR's shooting. You guys gave me culprits before. I'm going to give you one culprit. I mean culprit, I'm sorry. And I think Felton stinks. I think J.R. Smith's not a professional. It's easy to root for him when he's playing well. But for me, it's Iman Shumpert. And I'm a big Iman Shumpert fan. I followed him in Georgia Tech. But he's trying so hard to be this offensive juggernaut all of a sudden where he doesn't look anywhere nearly engaged defensively where he did in his prior 2 seasons. I remember a specific point where he played Dwayne Wade, and we were at the Garden watching the game, and he's guarding Dwayne Wade, and there's just magic in the Garden, just watching the way he's getting into Dwayne Wade's shorts. And he just doesn't look engaged defensively anymore. And it's unfortunately, Mike Woodson's a good basketball coach. I personally like him, and I don't think if they win tonight, you know they're not going to win tomorrow. I don't know if he's going to be on that West Coast trip, fellas.
You know what, Coach Kev? I agree a little bit on Shumpert, but I also give him somewhat of a pass because I think he's been messed with mentally by this organization.
He's been messed with, no doubt about it. He's frustrated because he knows he's a better player than given credit for. And it's one thing to have him acquiesce to Carmelo Anthony. It's another thing to have him acquiesce to a Melo, a Bunyani, a J.R. Smith. It drives him crazy. And that's got a lot to do with it as well, if we're going to be honest about it.
So, Steven, the other part of what Coach Kev just said about Mike Woodson, here is where I would say, now look, all of us are fearing Mike Woodson may not make it through that West Coast trip coming up, not because we think he shouldn't make it through, but because we just think he may not, because we're not the people who decide to keep him or fire him. But what I would say is this, and this is something that doesn't look good for Coach Woodson. Mike Woodson has never been known as this incredible X's and O's tactician. Now, people call him a defensive mind because he was on that Larry Brown staff of that Pistons team in 2004 that was unbelievable defensively, but he never was necessarily singled out as the reason that defense was what it was, and nobody has called him that over these last couple of years when it comes to offense, certainly, but even defense. Not that he was this X's and O's guru defensively. However, what he was given credit for and was given responsibility of was a team that was playing incredibly hard every single night and was managing the locker room and the chemistry and the effort on a nightly basis. And right now, those are things that were supposed to be strengths of his that are coming into question by players on the team itself. And that's what doesn't look good for Mike Woodson, and that is a real problem for him.
It is a real problem. And by the way, Carmelo Anthony saying that it ain't the coach's fault ain't going to get it done. because he's the one that's the star of the team, and he's highlighting how there's an absence of effort. And if you're Dolan, there's but so much to do to hold Melo accountable. So what choice do you have? If they want to protect Mike Woodson, the best way they can go about doing that is winning basketball games. And clearly they're not doing that.
No, here was Carmelo on the team's lack of effort.
We haven't been putting the effort, putting forth the effort that I know we, at the level that we can do it. I wouldn't say I'm unhappy with it, but it gets frustrating at times. As a group, we're not putting the effort, and I think that's the one thing, and that's the biggest thing.
That's what drives me crazy about Melo right there. What the hell do you mean? I'm not unhappy about it, but it does get a little frustrated sometimes. What's frustration? Is frustration happiness?
I've never been happily frustrated. I've never been happily frustrated.
Stop.
Yeah.
If they ain't giving it, they ain't giving it. Say it.
I think only Costanza's happily frustrated. I think the rest of us don't like to deal with frustration. I agree. Robert in the Bronx. Robert, you're on the Lexus of Route 10 hotline.
Hey, here's a quick question for you. How come no one's talked about this Jason Collins, and how come he can't be come off the bench for the Knicks? What's the problem with him?
Listen.
He's a 7-footer.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
People are going to allude to him coming out and that having an impact on why he's not on an NBA roster. But what they have to remember,
we're suffering, Stephen. We're suffering here.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
What people have to remember is there wasn't much interest in him before anybody knew about that stuff.
Right.
So I can't accuse any team of ostracizing him over that. There wasn't a bunch of people knocking down his door prior to all of this. So, you're over 34 years of age. Yes, you know how to play defense. Offensively, you never did but so much. All right? Defensively, it wasn't like you were some shot blocker extraordinaire, whatever the case may be. You combine all of that with the fact that, again, you don't know how people might treat him in the locker room or whatever the case may be. It's just a question people are going to, these are the kind of things that affect it. There's no way around it. Do you disagree with anything I said, Ryan?
No, I totally agree, and I think it's dangerous that people just assume exactly what you were saying. People assume that he's not getting interest because of coming out, but this
wasn't getting that much interest anyway.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's not like you're talking about somebody who was the sixth man on an NBA roster and all of a sudden can't get a job. You're talking about a center who was on and off rosters before any of that was known. And it's not like Jason Collins is coming in here and just going to make all of the Knicks' problems go away. Now, is he a big body and can he, stand in the paint and protect the rim a little bit? Yeah, he can do that kind of. But it's not like he is great at that. It's not like he's going to all of a sudden change the fortunes of your season. I do think one thing to keep in mind, with both of these teams evaluating. One, it's November, okay? It's November. Two, not having Tyson Chandler, your second best player, is very significant if you're the Knicks, and they are getting him back during this year. And not having a healthy Darren Williams and Brook Lopez the last couple games is very significant if you're the Nets. So right now, it looks like an abomination for both teams, but just the health alone, and maybe you're never completely healthy, you don't know, but those guys alone do change the way things have seemed lately once they get back. Here with Stephen A. and Ruocco on ESPN New York, 98.7 FM. A lot of you still need therapy. At 1-800-919-3776. Plus, Jay-Z with a not-so-stealth dinner. Maybe the Mets do land Robbie Cano. We dissect in a moment on ESPN New York.
Thanks for listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Be sure to listen weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.